in the Brookland neighborhood, so in Northeast DC. My name's Lee. I'm a geographer, which means like I make maps. I'm interested in, why things are the way they are in certain places. Geographers care about the why of where. And I became a geographer, I think, mostly because I grew up all over the place. And I moved every couple of years growing up. And then starting when I was a teenager, we started moving internationally a lot. And that really impacted who I became as a person and things I was interested in, what I got involved in. I've worked a lot in the environmental field, social justice field. And when I was in DC and working for the government, I was really lacking kind of a creative endeavor and saw how housing prices were escalating here. And because I'd been so mobile in my life, a tiny house on wheels really made sense to me. So I didn't really want to build my own house. I ended up doing that, but my impetus for doing the tiny house was really just to form a creative community in DC. I was lacking that. I'd moved here from the West Coast. I was working for the government, surrounded by a lot of type A personalities, and wasn't sure if I really loved the city. And then met a few folks and decided to start building tiny houses on a non-buildable alley lot. So we started Boneyard Studios in 2012. And through that process, I ended up hosting, monthly events, a tiny house concert series, open houses, and met a lot of creative folks in DC. And through that, then have this awesome community here. And so that kept me here. So even though I built mobile, I ended up deciding to stay. So forming the community was really my biggest thing. I wanted to be able to build in community. At that point in time when we started, it was 2012, and there weren't a lot of tiny houses out there, and you couldn't tour any. And so I knew how important it was for me to have been able to tour Jay Schaefer's house, and I wanted to open up our projects to other people. We were all surprised by there wasn't really much pushback. People were excited about it. No one ever really lived there full time because it wasn't allowed. I mean, we were a very public showcase. We kind of wrapped things up in late 2014, fall of 2014 was our last event with a tiny house plays that we hosted. And then Jay, Elaine, we all moved on. People think we shut down because of the city, but that's not the case at all. It was interpersonal dynamics, and basically one of the people we started the community with didn't want to live in community. He wanted it for his business. But I knew from the get-go, if just one person owned the property, that wasn't going to last, and it didn't. Recognizing that I have a pretty strong community here and I want to stay invested in DC, or near DC. I've been priced out of DC a little bit now, but I just bought a house across the border in Mount Rainier, so it's still 3 blocks from DC. And what I've also realized is that I want more of a community feel. So it used to be my friends living in the main house here, and we would have, they'd have Shabbat dinner on Friday night, or we have brunch on Sunday. It felt a little bit more community oriented. And now there's just, other DC professionals renting the house, but we haven't really created a community. And so I was looking to own the piece of property where I placed my tiny house, as I don't know that I'll stay in DC forever, but I want it to be home base, and I wanted to make sure that I had some security around where I parked my tiny house. And then I also wanted a space where I could have roommates again and live with people, because I really enjoy living in community. And so I'm excited about that. So my tiny house is 18 by 8. I have a removable 4-foot porch, which comes off when I move the house. So I didn't do any built-ins really when I built the house, just because I knew I might want to change things around. It's gone through a couple of design iterations since I've lived in it for 3 years. Unless you've really, really planned your design and thought through it and spent a lot of time in tiny houses, I like not doing built-ins because it makes it a lot easier to actually used to have my closet over here, and I had a desk instead of a table, and I had a 2-seater. I had a different configuration with my living room. And then I kind of realized the way I used the space, I preferred a couch, and I didn't need as much countertop space as I thought I would need, so I put that over, so I was able to switch stuff around really easily. So this is my living room. I've got shoe storage here, these little IKEA cabinets, I love that. I've got a little table here. This leaf comes off actually and can go up there, so it makes it more like a little shelf. But I usually just have it open. I can actually get 3 people around here. And then I love my couch, and I would totally advocate for tiny housers to have this couch, except the company is no longer in existence. It was called Grey Cork, but it was one of the couches, only couches I could find that was, you know, 6 feet, but only 30 inches deep. And these come off, and it's actually a great place to sleep. So it doubles as like a twin bed for a guest. And then I make use of vertical storage. And this is my closet. I have a substantial closet. I also have drawers underneath my couch that holds like a lot of my camping gear. I don't know, I think my kitchen is pretty decent size for a tiny house, but I still miss having a little bit more space. When I was designing my tiny house, we didn't put the dormers into the living room, which then I realized after the fact that meant I couldn't do any stairs. So I wanted like a sliding ladder, but I didn't want to pay for the library ladder. So I just have hooks on here and a rod, and it slides across. And then this is a nice, like, not a super steep ladder, so I like it better because I can just walk up it pretty comfortably into my loft. And then it just tucks away, so it's not always out. So my kitchen, pretty standard tiny house kitchen, I guess. Sink, refrigerator. I've got a 3-burner propane stove. And then I put this over it sometimes just to have a little bit more workspace. And then my bathroom, this closes, and I like having a full-length mirror. I didn't know where to put one, but I got these at IKEA. They're just like these mirrors that you can stick on there. And then my bathroom is a separate toilet. I used to have a sink here, but it wasn't enough room, so we created this little corner sink that I really like with a little wooden salad bowl. And then the shower, I did a concrete floor that was stained, and then these plaster walls that some people are doing in their main house, I guess, and then there's a treatment that goes over it. So I like the way that turned out too. It's a little bit different. So cotillera is just kind of actually a word I made up, because coti is home in Finnish, and I come from Finnish American family, and then tierra is land in Spanish. And before I got into tiny houses, I was working around land rights and land tenure. So that's really my passion as a geographer. And the tiny house really falls into that in the sense of we still are, even though we have secure housing, right? We've built our own houses, we still have insecurity in land tenure. Like most of us don't own where we place our tiny houses. The larger goal is really just exploring home and belonging and what that means in a transient world. But what I'm focusing on right now is this zoning application, so folks can share information around zoning and where to place tiny houses, or what different jurisdictions are doing with regards to tiny houses and ADUs across the country. I mean, what I like a lot about the tiny house movement is it teaches people that we can build our own houses. There is, you know, vernacular housing was my grandpa built my grandma their last house by, you know, with his own hands, and no power tools actually. And so that's just one generation removed from me. And then here I built my own house as well. And so it's not, we've all come from that tradition of building our own houses, but you know, we've kind of stepped away from that. And I think it's really important for people to remember that we can do this.
Alexis and Christian here with Tiny House Expedition.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe.
And click left or right for more tiny house stories and tours.